ELD with Brainstorm MTG back with some legacy action from Scholars Games, and I'm actually facing off against the owner of the store here, Pyle Souza, opening up on Island into Ponder. Sneak and Show versus Czech Pyle. One of the tougher matchups for the deck. Back when Esper Stoneblade was a deck, it was one of the best equipped control decks at facing combo decks because it had discard along with counter magic and a reasonable clock, and I feel like Czech Pyle kind of picked up that mantle. Him to Torok, a back-breaking card, especially when you have the ability to flash it back with Snapcaster Mage. A very grindy, control-oriented deck. And of course, Leovold, an absolute powerhouse, stopping all the card advantage in digging that a opposing deck is capable of. And a bunch of Ancient Tombs here, and jamming Show and Tell right out of the gates here. And pulling a Force pitching Snapcaster. It looks like that basic island not the best option here at this point. With that sneak attack stuck in hand, gonna need to find some red mana. And him to Torak. Very punishing. Losing the Cunning Wish and the sneak attack. Those are easily the two best cards in the hand here. Red mana right off the top of the deck. And just a shame to see that sneak attack go. Brainstorm and Fetchland, the best combo in the format. There's a Baleful Strix. Of course, Kyle going to need a whole bunch of permanents to get around an Emrakul attack, but he's moving in that direction. Baleful Strix can, in fact, stand up to it. And another Hymn to Torok. This is likely just close to game over. Sneak and Show really needs at least 2 cards in hand to make anything happen, preferably 3, and that's when you're not fighting against counter magic. Things complicated greatly by the fact that Emrakul does force you to shuffle your graveyard into your library. So you can't really keep cards safe on top of your library if Emrakul's in your hand. Losing Gristlebrand. 1 left in hand. Cunning Wish and Omniscience. So likely to see an end step here of Cunning Wish for Intuition. But that is Force of Willed. And that is very big. They're not getting the shuffle effect because of that force. Baleful Strix continuing to chip away at the life total. And 6 permanents, now 7 with Deathrite, means Emrakul is not exactly a savior. In fact, 6 permanents could be comfortably sacrificed and then still have Deathrite with a black source to be able to continue draining. So this game is getting very far out of hand. Deathrite starting to chip away at the life total. Ancient Tomb really just inching toward death with any activation. 3 damage represented on Kyle's side of the board. And maybe just time to try and make a move. There is Kozilek's Return, which could clear this board. But far from ideal. And there's another force. no idea what that sound was. All right. Well, that is the end of game one. A really one-sided game there with Kyle having all of the answers. I do think this is one of the more challenging matchups for Sneak and Show right now. I feel like Czech Pyle is one of the best decks in the format. I know Grixis Delver is widely believed to be the best control style deck, or perhaps the best deck, running control elements. Funny how we don't really think of Sneak and Show as a type of control deck. It does have quite a few control elements in it as well. It does have your Force of Wills and your Spell Pierces, Flusterstorm, Surgical Extractions in the sideboard. There are a lot of ways that the deck can play like a control deck. It's just typically the faster deck when it sits down. But when you do play against a deck like Storm, it does very much allow you to kind of suit up behind your defenses and attempt to win when you're ready, while keeping them in check. On the other side of the coin here, Czech Pyle very much able to get down some relevant threats on board and then fight on the stack and within the hand. Kind of all three zones kept in check. Czech Pyle also really able to leverage singletons well. I'm a fan of the ability of Snapcaster Mage, along with the selection of the cantrips to both find and then fully leverage singleton. So when you're talking about a card like Red Elemental Blast, I've seen some Czech Pyle lists running that main. Should almost certainly be a Pyroblast, so you can at least get it out of your hand and eat it with your own Deathrite Shaman. I guess there's no reason to run Red Blast over Pyro there. But the fact that you can actually use that as a singleton, find it, and then use Snapcaster to go ahead and then reuse it is just extremely powerful. When you do have those silver bullets against the deck like Red Blast or Pyro versus Sneak and Show, where it's almost entirely blue, when you do get double use out of it, it just makes it so much more powerful than just having it as a singleton. Really pushing the reward side of the risk-reward ratio through the roof. At a relatively low risk of just a single potentially dead card in the main. Ponder. Good enough. Usually a bad sign. Very often those early game ponders are looking for lands. So you don't necessarily have to panic when your opponent keeps. Of course, in the late game when your opponent is pondering and they are keeping, if they are playing well, it almost certainly means that that is about as good as it gets on top of their library, which is usually bad news. But in the early game, it is quite often just that they're trying to build their mana base, as it's one of the most important things in the early game to not stumble on. Missing one of your first 2 or 3 land drops, worlds different than missing, on turn 5, 6, 7, or 8. At that point, many decks certainly don't want to keep making their land drops. But the early turns, so important in Magic. And Sneak and Show really struggling this game with just that Ancient Tomb, and now Leovold from Czech Pyle cutting off most of the cards in hand. So this is really one-sided here. Czech Pyle with a Clock and now a Hymn to Torok. There was a Cunning Wish in there, which could have been fired off in response. Of course, if they do hit your card that you found with Cunning Wish, that is a total blowout. And actually, the Cunning Wish is found, so Sneak Attack and Cunning Wish both hit with Hymn to Torok. I believe the same as game 1 there. And at this point, gotta hope that Pyle hasn't found a bunch of counter magic. Likely gonna have to just grab a Volcanic and perhaps just start firing off some cantrips. There it is. Even though we're not going to get any extra cards off of this, at least going to dig in terms of card selection, trying to find a show and tell or a sneak attack. And there's Ponder on the other side. So much better when you get to draw the card. So it looks like a fetch land left on top here. Oh no, a Cunning Wish. Well, that's just a blunder there. Red Blast drawn from the Cunning Wish. And then Ponder setting up another look. There's Emrakul. Definitely not good enough. Of course, Ponder and Preordain are able to be used underneath Leovold. You are able to look at the top 3 cards and rearrange them, and you are able to scry too. A Brainstorm, on the other hand, just ends up Hymn to Torokking yourself. Essentially just putting 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. So this is a time where you actually would much rather see Ponder or Preordain. But there it is, Leovold crossing the finish line here, doing 3 more damage, putting Deathrite Shaman in lethal range. And that is it. And Pyle with a little of look at all these Force of Wills, Flusterstorms, Red Blast, 4 days, and an absolute blowout match there. So there you go. One of the most powerful decks in the format in Sneak and Show, looking just like a pile of random cards against Czech Pyle, with both its discard and counter magic, as well as disruption on board. So it is definitely a deck to be concerned about in the metagame. If you're not prepared for Czech Pyle, prepared to be losing to it. All right, well, thanks for watching. You made it to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you want to help the channel, you can click like or subscribe, or you can check out some of our other videos covering Magic's most powerful formats. Thanks for watching.